My experience with VR is a little bit older than that. One of the teacher's assistants at my high school had a Oculus dev kit too.
Oh,
So,
wow.
Ooh.
yeah, which was very, very rough. It had really bad screen dooring. It was not the highest refresh rate.
Hmm.
And the demo he used was the roller coaster demo that was really popular back then. So it was the worst
Hmm.
of every
Let
single
Yeah.
world.
first immediate interaction with VR. Yeah, let's make you want to
Never.
throw up.
Yeah, let's never do
Yeah.
this again.
Yeah. So I was kind of turned off VR for a very long time after that. And my next experience was in uni where I had a VR development course and they had, I think they were either Vives or Vive Pros, which was a
Hmm.
lot better of an experience. I
Oh yeah.
still do experience like motion sickness from VR stuff, but I think a lot of developers have also learned like what they can do and what they can't do. I like when I play like Beat Saber, for example. Beat Saber, I can do perfectly fine,
Hmm.
but a lot of the heavy movement games, I still do experience like a lot of VR sickness. Like if I was to play something like Gorilla Tag, for example, I'm gonna be dead in 5 minutes.
Oh, same, same. Like I still experience motion sickness and stuff too. Like it's lessened because of the development and sort of getting a bit more used to it, but absolutely like long-term play, it like the stomach flips at around an hour and it's like, oh joy.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that's always a fun task to combat
Mhm.
with this sort of stuff, and it's a unique challenge as well because typically you don't really get that experience just with traditional games.
And that kind of leads into Project Nova because I watched.
Hmm.
Sadly, I didn't get to play it at Avcom, but I did see there were a couple of parts in there that definitely would have probably been an issue for me, like the part where you're climbing across the bars. If I was
Yeah.
to, yeah, I do want to ask, like, how
Yeah.
do you go about actually dealing with these problems in a way that I guess makes people feel immersed, but still I don't know. Actually, like, managed to deal with some of the motion sickness problem. I know you can't deal with everything. Some of it is
Hmm.
hardware limitation, but I know there is certainly stuff that can be done from your side as well.
Yeah, I mean, like through developing Project Nova as well as our previous project, Project Nightlight, and all of our personal experiences with VR, like even myself, like I was fairly resistant to motion sickness.
Mhm.
I can never remember what the game was called. I remember at one point I was playing a game that had continuous movement,
Mhm.
and I'd been playing for a solid half hour, wasn't feeling too bad, and then I just hit a wall and just went, I need to stop playing. I'm about to
Hmm.
throw up.
Mhm. Mhm.
But like ever since then, I've been fine. But yeah, no, it's definitely one of the things that we keep having to think about. So
Mhm.
like we, I guess there's kind of three major things that we can kind of do as developers. Like first one, optimize the hell out of the game so it runs at 90 frames or more. Just because like again, personal experience as well as definitely developing the games where they're unoptimized and you're having to play through it at like 20 frames. That's not fun. um, but yeah, like optimizing the hell out of it so that it will be running at 90 frames or more. That's definitely a big one.
Mhm.
The other one is not all games do it, but a lot of games now offer different movement methods. So
Mhm.
like the standards are kind of continuous movement or teleportation. Like
Mhm.
those are
Mhm.
kind of the big two that have stood out. There are definitely a whole bunch of different methods to even those. Like I remember Doom VR, they kind of had teleporting, but it was like you teleport, but you just like very rapidly move between those 2 points and things like that.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that's another thing. Just giving people the ability to change the movement methods. Continuous is definitely what we kind of develop for and prefer people playing,
Mhm.
just because it's more immersive. You're not teleporting and
Right. Right.
blacking out all the time and all this stuff. But like, yeah, we do offer teleporting. A lot of VR games do at this point.
Mhm.
And then the third one, which we haven't mucked around with as much, but it's definitely something that we want to get into Nova, is the vignetting. So like when you start moving, you basically just bring in like a vignette from the side of the screen
Mhm.
just to help with that disassociation between what's happening in front of you and what your body is feeling.
Okay.
Um, like one of the games that I know that did it quite a lot. and it'll be very obvious why, was like a lot of these Spider-Man VR games. They brought out some like nice little demo things and stuff like that, and basically when you're swinging, so you don't get that massive, feeling of motion sickness because you are just flying through a city. They bring in a vignette, so basically it's like a kind of a gradient starting at like black from the outside going to see-through in the middle.
Okay.
And basically the faster you went, the more it kind of closed in, so you get very tunnel vision, but it helps with the disassociation between what your body is feeling and what your brain is perceiving. So it's something we want to bring into Nova, and we're trying to work out the best ways of doing it. But we definitely want to do it for continuous movement. Just most people who choose continuous are like fairly resistant to motion sickness, but people like yourself, you might want to try it out and just be like, I really want that vignette to help with that disassociation. And then as you were saying, like the climbing sections, that's another area we want to have like kind of separate settings for. So if people are like okay with continuous, but they get to that climbing section, they're just like, oh, I don't like, they can bring in the vignette and help with that disassociation and get through that section with more comfort.
Is there something that comes in with like the way that you would like lay out a level as well, and maybe not having certain, like as you pointed out that game you played where there was the 2D thing, you're just looking up and down, and if you look straight down you just see a void. I would imagine there's certain things you'd want to avoid in the way that you design things with how they look as well.
Yeah, no, go for it.
I was just gonna say like bringing it back to like roller coaster games and stuff like that, like a lot of the stuff that you can do in VR, if you do decide to go down that route of having a roller coaster and kind of not giving the player the ability to control the movement themselves, the more you can kind of fit them into an area. So like even myself playing certain roller coaster games, if you can't view the coaster that you're in as much, that will lead you to more motion sickness. Meanwhile, if you just like lower the camera down or make the model a bit bigger and it kind of encapsulates your vision a bit more, you will be less likely to be sick, just because you kind of feel more grounded. So there's some design aspects like that you can do.
I think the thing that really throws me off isn't as much of the horizontal movement. I'm generally pretty fine with that. It's the vertical movement. Like I don't get motion sickness in a car, but I cannot do elevators. Like more than 2 floors in an elevator, just I need to sit down for a moment. So having any sort of vertical movement where you can see that you're going up and down, and it like that's the really bad thing about the roller coaster. Like when it's going, the flat parts are fine, but as soon as you're going up and down, like it really to me feels like you're going up and down as well.
Yep.
No, there's certain things that like are just going to trigger people more than others. Like one of the things that like, again, personal experience as well as like what we were taught is like you can rotate the camera around, like say you're standing on the spot and you're turning, like that can be okay for certain people, but like the second you rotate it as if you're like tilting your head, that like almost immediately will trigger people. So it's very much so a thing of like unfortunately we're the guinea pigs most of the time, but like just playing the hell out of it and just being like, okay, what works, what doesn't, like what can we get away with in that respect. Like that's also one of the reasons why playtesting is great, because unfortunately myself and Mark, one of the other developers, we're basically immune to motion sickness at this point. Like, we've played through our game at like 10 frames a second. Like we've had the screen freeze, so our entire screen, like our entire vision is just a picture that's rotating with us as we're going. Like
that one's not fun.
We've got past the point, so we kind of need people like even just Matt, because he doesn't develop and like play it as much, so like he's a bit more susceptible and stuff like that. Like unfortunately, kind of some of it is just play test and see what people feel sick with, what people are okay with.
Curiously on that as well, like we weren't anticipating it, but we assumed that we would get people at AvCon that had that sort of level of like, ooh, okay, wow, I got to like sort of stop. But across the entire weekend, even with first-time VR users, only one dude kind of said that his stomach felt a little funny. which like sort of blew us away because we were expecting, like myself with my first experience with it, like I felt unwell. So it's interesting that like first time users, even like with our other game, sort of Project Nightlight, like both times like it's been relatively decent, even with sort of climbing parts and stuff like that. Like we've not really had anyone feel that sickness,
right.
which massive achievement. But yeah, it's an interesting just sort of thing that we weren't necessarily prepared for the lack of.